more you explain, the less they listen. Carl Jung once said that everything we do to prove our worth comes from the fear of not having it. Have you ever felt that the harder you try to make someone understand you, the more invisible you become? You explain, justify, overshare. Not because you're wrong, but because a hidden part of you still doubts its own truth. And people can sense that energy. Respect doesn't arise from convincing words. It radiates from quiet certainty. When your energy says, "I need you to believe me," it vibrates as lack. But when your presence says, "I trust myself," the room changes. In this journey, you will see why silence is not weakness, why being misunderstood is not failure, and why true respect begins the moment you stop explaining. 1. The paradox of explanation and respect. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung. You may have spent years believing that the more clearly you explain yourself, the more people will respect you. That if you could just find the right words, they would finally see your good intentions, your logic, your heart. But what if I told you that explaining too much doesn't create understanding? It creates imbalance? Every time you rush to defend your point, to justify why you did what you did, you unconsciously step out of your own center. You move from being grounded in truth to performing for validation. And in that subtle, energetic shift, something vital happens. The authority of your presence disappears. Respect leaks away, not because you're wrong, but because your energy has quietly said, "I don't trust my own truth unless you approve it." In Jungian psychology, this is the voice of the shadow self, the unseen aspect of you that fears rejection. It whispers, "If they misunderstand me, I will lose love." So you over-explain to protect connection, to keep belonging. But ironically, every extra word becomes proof to your unconscious that your truth needs defense, and that defense keeps you small. Jung wrote, "What you resist not only persists, it controls you." When you resist being misunderstood, you create more situations where you are. Life mirrors back the energy of self-doubt until you learn to stand quietly inside your own conviction. Think of the moments when you explained something again and again, only to watch the other person's eyes glaze over. It wasn't the words that failed. It was the vibration underneath them. The subtle plea for recognition. Words born from insecurity never land where we want them to. They bounce off, echoing the same message to the psyche. I'm not enough until they say I am. And yet, something inside you already knows this truth. You felt the shift, the rare moments when you spoke less but felt stronger, when silence carried more gravity than 1,000 justifications. That's not coincidence, that's alignment. Because real respect is energetic. It's the silent signal that says, I am at peace with myself, even if you don't understand me. When Jung talked about individuation, the process of becoming whole, he didn't mean pleasing everyone. He meant reclaiming the parts of you that once depended on others for definition. He meant walking through misunderstanding without shrinking. And that takes courage. It means letting people be wrong about you and still sleeping well at night. It means choosing your inner stability over their temporary approval. It means remembering that the deepest respect is never negotiated. It's recognized. Modern psychology calls this energetic self-trust, the ability to stay anchored in your truth when the external world disagrees. It's not arrogance, it's coherence. Your nervous system learns that safety no longer comes from being understood, but from being integrated. And when that happens, people feel it before they even hear you. They respond differently because the energy has changed. As Jung said, energy never lies. So, pause for a moment. Where in your life are you still explaining yourself? To be liked, to be forgiven, to be seen as good? Who are you still convincing, and why does their understanding matter so much? Maybe it's not about them at all. Maybe it's about that younger version of you who still believes that love must be earned through clarity, through proof, through compliance. But you're not that child anymore. You don't need to defend your essence to be worthy of respect. Silence, when rooted in self-trust, is not avoidance. It's mastery. It's saying, my truth doesn't need an audience to exist. And in that quiet steadiness, respect naturally rises. People start to treat you differently, not because they suddenly changed, but because your frequency did. They sense you are no longer asking to be seen. You are seeing yourself. So as we move through this journey, remember, every explanation born of fear dilutes your power. Every moment of calm presence amplifies it. Respect doesn't come from the perfect sentence. It comes from the energy of self-certainty that words can never convey. And when you finally stop trying to be understood, something extraordinary happens. You begin to understand yourself. 2. The mirror of relationships and projection. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. Every human interaction is a mirror, sometimes gentle, sometimes merciless. And the way others respond to your words is never random. The person who ignores you, interrupts you, or demands endless explanations is not the cause of your pain. They are the reflection of a belief still active within you. When someone challenges your truth, your unconscious seizes the opportunity to reveal what is unhealed. If you feel the urgent need to explain, it's not the situation demanding clarity. It's your shadow demanding acknowledgement. You are not truly talking to them. You are talking to the unseen part of yourself that still whispers, "Please believe me." Jung called this process projection, the mind's habit of assigning inner conflict to the outer world. You meet your own unintegrated self in the people around you. The impatient friend mirrors your self-judgment. The dismissive partner mirrors your fear of invisibility. The boss who never listens mirrors the part of you that doesn't listen to your own needs. Every mirror is accurate, it just doesn't flatter. And so, the more you try to make others get it, the more life shows you where you don't yet get yourself. Because the universe is structured to return your vibration, not your intention. Your words may say, "I deserve respect," but your energy might still say, "I'm afraid you won't respect me." People don't consciously hear the difference, but their nervous systems do. They respond to frequency, not vocabulary. This is why you can speak calmly, even kindly, and still feel disrespected. It isn't about tone, it's about the emotional field you're transmitting. You may be speaking from the surface of confidence while leaking the energy of doubt. And the world, being a faithful mirror, reflects it right back. The hardest truth is this: people cannot consistently treat you in ways that your own energy does not authorize. If you habitually explain, you teach them that your clarity depends on their approval. If you go silent in resentment, you teach them that your voice carries guilt. But if you hold presence, that quiet, steady certainty, you teach them that you are already enough, with or without their understanding. That's how respect begins, as an internal law of resonance. Think of the last person who made you feel small. Maybe they questioned your motives or twisted your words. Pause that memory. Notice the impulse that rose inside you, the surge to justify, to prove, to fix. That impulse is not power, it's fear. And when fear speaks first, wisdom loses her microphone. Instead of explaining, try observing. Ask yourself, what is this person showing me about my relationship with myself? That question changes everything. It shifts the power from them to you. It turns pain into feedback, and suddenly, the entire dynamic reverses. You are no longer begging to be seen. You are studying your own energy being mirrored back at you. Jung believed that every relationship is a sacred contract for awareness. No one enters your life by chance. Each person who triggers you carries a fragment of your unconscious, asking to be reclaimed. The dismissive friend teaches self-assertion. The judgmental parent teaches self-acceptance. The partner who misunderstands teaches self-clarity. They are all invitations to look inward, not outward. When you begin to view relationships this way, defensiveness fades. The urge to explain softens. You start hearing the lesson beneath the noise. You realize, they don't need to understand me for this to be meaningful. The moment you stop defending, the mirror stabilizes, and the reflection becomes clear, not of who they are, but of who you are becoming. In Jung's language, this is the first step toward individuation, the awakening of inner authority. You cease outsourcing your worth to external validation. You learn to hold misunderstanding as a neutral event, not an existential threat. And you discover the paradox of respect. The less you chase it, the more it naturally gravitates towards you. So, the next time you feel that old heat rising in your chest, that compulsion to justify, to prove, to be understood, pause. Breathe deeply once. Let the silence speak for you. Because silence has a language the soul understands, it says, I am whole, even if you can't see it yet. And when your energy learns to speak that sentence, no explanation will ever be needed again. Sartre, shadow integration, the fear of being misunderstood. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, there is a part of you that cannot stand being misunderstood. It lives in the background of every conversation, listening, calculating, rehearsing how to be clearer, kinder, more convincing. And no matter how evolved you've become, how many books you've read, or how many therapy sessions you've had, that part still panics when someone gets you wrong. Why? Because being misunderstood feels, to the shadow, like death. When you were young, understanding was love. If the adults around you misread your emotions, you learned that misunderstanding leads to punishment, rejection, or silence. So you adapted. You became the one who explains, who smooths over tension, who over-communicates just to feel safe. That strategy worked once. It kept you connected. But as an adult, it drains you. Because what used to protect you now imprisons you. The fear of being misunderstood is not intellectual. It's cellular. It's stored in the body as a memory of danger. That's why, even when you know you don't need to explain, your throat tightens, your chest heats, your mind races. Your nervous system believes misunderstanding equals abandonment. It's not logic. It's trauma pretending to be communication. Jung would call this a complex, a cluster of emotions, beliefs, and memories orbiting a single wound. If they don't get me, I will disappear. And until you make that unconscious fear conscious, it will hijack every dialogue you enter. You will keep meeting people who don't understand you, not because the universe is cruel, but because it's precise. It mirrors your shadow to bring it home. Take a moment to imagine a woman named Mira. Smart, composed, spiritually aware, She has healed, she meditates, she journals. But every time someone questions her motives, she feels an uncontrollable urge to explain. She writes long messages, clarifies every word, tries to fix the misunderstanding before it becomes rejection. Her mind knows she doesn't need to, but her energy can't stop. She's not seeking peace. She's seeking permission to exist. One day, during a quiet moment, she hears the truth. I'm not afraid of being wrong. I'm afraid of being invisible. And something inside her softens. She realizes she's been trying to earn what cannot be earned. Validation from people who were never meant to see her fully. That is the moment the shadow steps into the light. Integration doesn't happen by fighting the shadow. It happens by seeing it. You don't scold the part that fears being misunderstood. You embrace it. You say, I see why you explain. You just wanted to feel safe. And in that acceptance, the compulsion loosens its grip. The need to explain transforms into the permission to rest. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is what it means. Enlightenment is not endless positivity. It's intimacy with the parts of you you've tried to hide. The moment you stop rejecting your fear, it stops running your life. When the shadow of misunderstanding is integrated, communication changes. You start speaking less, but every word carries weight. You stop editing your truth for fear of disapproval. You stop explaining love, intentions, boundaries. You begin to live from inner coherence. What you think, feel, and say finally align. That alignment radiates a power that words can't manufacture. Respect, then, is a byproduct of integration. People respect what is internally united, even if they don't understand it. They can sense wholeness the way they sense authenticity, without needing proof. The paradox is beautiful. When you no longer chase being understood, you become magnetic. So the next time someone misunderstands you, pause before reacting. Notice the younger self rising to defend. Place your hand on your heart, breathe deeply, and whisper, I see you. You don't need to fix this. You are safe even when they don't get it. That simple gesture rewires your nervous system faster than 1,000 explanations. Because now, instead of seeking safety through others, you're giving safety to yourself. This is the alchemy Jung pointed to. Turning fear into awareness, pain into wisdom, misunderstanding into mastery. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your most loyal teacher. It doesn't want to be erased. It wants to be integrated. And once it is, your silence no longer feels like weakness. It feels like sovereignty. You no longer need to shout your truth across the room. Your energy already says it for you. And that is when misunderstanding loses its power and respect quietly takes its place. 4. Pattern, audit, and attachment. The loop of explaining yourself. Until you make peace with your inner patterns, the world will keep giving you people who press the same wounds. Inspired by Carl Jung's principle of repetition compulsion. Patterns don't lie. They repeat, elegantly, ruthlessly, until you finally stop calling them coincidence. Every time you find yourself explaining again, pleading again, proving again, you are not living a new story. You are living an old memory dressed in new faces. Why do you keep meeting people who don't seem to hear you? Why does every conversation eventually circle back to you defending your motives? Because your nervous system is still addicted to the frequency of misunderstanding. It mistakes familiar pain for emotional safety. Jung observed that the unconscious prefers what is familiar over what is comfortable. That's why you can leave a toxic relationship and unconsciously choose another one that feels the same. You don't seek the person, you seek the pattern. You are drawn to the energetic texture you already know, even if it hurts, because pain that's predictable feels safer than love that's uncertain. The mind says, I just want peace. But the body whispers, I only know chaos. And until you listen to that whisper, you'll keep explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. Take a closer look at your history. Who have you spent the most energy trying to convince? A parent who misunderstood your intentions? A partner who always doubted your sincerity? A friend who twisted your words? Write their names down. Not to blame them, but to recognize the curriculum of your soul. Each of them was a mirror for the same root belief. I must explain myself to be safe. That belief began as a survival mechanism. You learned that staying connected required constant translation. But in adulthood, this turns into emotional self-abandonment. The moment you leave your truth to go chase their approval. Every "let me explain" costs you a piece of peace. Jung called this the process of repetition compulsion, the psyche's attempt to recreate unresolved pain in hopes of mastering it this time. You attract familiar dynamics, so the unconscious can finally bring them into awareness. But awareness, not endurance, is the medicine. You don't need to keep suffering to learn. You need to see clearly enough to stop. Consider the woman, Mira, again. After realizing her fear of being invisible, she began to notice the pattern everywhere. Her partner would question her tone. Her manager would misread her emails. Even her friends would say, "You're too sensitive." It wasn't that everyone had suddenly turned against her. Her energy was still rehearsing the same vibration. I must explain myself to stay safe. And life, as always, was faithfully mirroring that frequency. One evening, during a simple disagreement, Mira felt the old pull, that sharp urge to defend herself, to fix how she was being perceived. But this time, she stopped. She placed her hand over her heart and said silently, "It's okay to be misunderstood." The argument faded. The energy shifted. Nothing exploded. The world didn't end. For the first time, silence felt safer than explanation. That's how patterns break, not through resistance, but through consciousness. The moment you interrupt the familiar response, the entire system recalibrates. You teach your body that peace can exist without external validation. And the unconscious learns a new definition of safety: staying with myself. This is the essence of emotional reparenting, becoming the presence you once needed, so you no longer chase it outside. Every pattern is a teacher disguised as repetition. It asks, will you choose differently this time? And choosing differently often looks painfully simple. Saying nothing when you'd usually explain. Breathing when you'd usually defend. Walking away when you'd usually prove. Each small act of stillness is a revolution in your nervous system. Jung wrote that until we accept the pattern within, the outer world will continue to act it out for us. So if you are tired of being misunderstood, stop searching for new people to hear you. Start listening to the part of you that still doesn't believe your own voice. That's where the healing begins. Not in the next conversation, but in the silence that follows when you choose not to explain. Remember, life is not punishing you with repetition. It is patiently inviting you to graduate from it. And the day you decide to stop explaining yourself to the world is the day the pattern finally releases its hold. Because it has taught you what it came to teach. That you were never misunderstood by others as deeply as you misunderstood your own power. 5. Self-respect and embodied self-love. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung, self-respect isn't a slogan. It's an energetic posture, the quiet steadiness of someone who no longer needs to perform to feel worthy. When you start to embody respect for yourself, words become optional. You speak less, you explain less, you prove less, because your energy is already saying, I am enough. True self-respect begins when you stop outsourcing your peace to other people's reactions. It's not about arrogance or indifference. It's about alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction, you radiate coherence. And coherence is magnetic. People can sense it long before they can describe it. That's why the most respected people are rarely the loudest. They are simply the most centered. For years, you may have thought self-love meant being kind to yourself, treating yourself well, reciting affirmations in the mirror. Those are beautiful practices, but embodied self-love goes deeper. It's not a statement. It's a vibration. It's how you breathe when you're misunderstood. It's how you sit in silence after being criticized. It's how you choose stillness when every part of you wants to explain. The essence of embodied self-love is trust. Trusting your truth enough to let it stand on its own. You stop convincing because you know that reality doesn't need witnesses to be real. You stop defending because you finally understand. Only what is fragile requires protection. Your truth isn't fragile. It's ancient. It has survived every misunderstanding you've ever faced. Carl Jung taught that individuation, becoming whole, requires the reconciliation of opposites. To embody self-love, you must hold both humility and confidence, both silence and expression, both light and shadow. You respect yourself not by inflating your importance, but by refusing to shrink your presence. You speak when truth needs voice, not when ego needs proof. Imagine Mira again, a few months after recognizing her pattern. Now, when someone misreads her tone or questions her motives, she feels the old urge to explain rising like a tide. But she smiles instead. She knows that urge isn't truth, it's memory. She breathes, centers, and says calmly, "That's not how I meant it, but I understand how you could see it that way." Then she stops there. No essays, no convincing, just a gentle boundary and space. And miraculously, the conversation softens. Her energy speaks louder than her words ever did. That is embodied self-respect in motion. Respect follows energy, not argument. When you respect yourself, you set a tone that others subconsciously match. Your calm becomes contagious. Your stillness becomes authority. People listen differently because your energy no longer pleads. It simply is. The law of resonance does the rest. Self-respect also changes how you treat yourself internally. You no longer replay old conversations, rewriting what you should have said. You don't punish yourself for being misunderstood. You catch the inner critic and replace it with curiosity. Why did that moment trigger me? Then you respond with compassion, not condemnation. Every time you choose understanding over judgment within, you reinforce the vibration of self-love without. To embody this energy daily, practice small rituals of presence. In the morning, before speaking to anyone, place your hand on your chest and say, "My truth is clear, even in silence." During conflict, take one conscious breath before answering. This pauses the autopilot of defense. At night, write one line in your journal. "Today I stayed with myself when I could have abandoned me." Do this long enough, and the nervous system learns a new rhythm. Steadiness replaces urgency. Self-respect doesn't demand attention, it invites it. It doesn't shout, "See me." It whispers, "I see me." That's the vibration the universe mirrors back as respect, opportunity, love, and peace. And when you live from that vibration, the world rearranges to meet it. There is no need to force others to recognize your worth. Your worth was never up for debate. It's the ground you walk on, not the medal you earn. So walk quietly, confidently, knowing that explanation is unnecessary when your energy already embodies truth. As Jung said, energy never lies. Let your energy be the proof. Let your silence be the sermon. Let your steadiness be the language of self-respect. Because the moment you start embodying self-love, you stop chasing understanding. And that's precisely when respect starts chasing you. 6. Boundaries and energetic authority. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. Healthy boundaries are not walls. They are frequencies. They are invisible fields that announce to the world, "This is where my peace lives. Please step respectfully." And yet, for many, the word boundary still carries guilt. We fear that saying no means rejection, that silence means coldness, that choosing ourselves means losing others. But in truth, boundaries are not how you push people away. They're how you teach them where love can safely reach you. Boundaries are not enforced through explanation. They are transmitted through energy. When your inner field is steady, you don't have to defend it. People simply feel it. It's not in the sentence you say, it's in the vibration you hold. A person anchored in self-respect radiates a calm authority that says, "I won't fight you, but I also won't betray myself." Carl Jung often spoke about individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the parts of yourself that once sought approval. To live as an integrated being, you must allow others to experience the consequences of your boundaries without rescuing them from their discomfort. That is energetic maturity. You stop explaining your no. You stop cushioning your limits. You stop overmanaging other people's reactions. Because you finally understand. Protecting your peace is not cruelty. It's clarity. Let's revisit Mira, the woman who once felt compelled to explain everything. One afternoon, a friend asked her for a favor she couldn't grant. The old Mira would have written a long message, apologizing, over-justifying, softening every word. But now, she simply said, "I won't be able to do that." Then she paused, breathed, and stayed silent. The silence felt huge at first, awkward, even scary. But within that stillness, she felt her spine straighten, her heart slow down, her energy settle. She realized that the world didn't collapse when she honored her no. It expanded. That moment marked the beginning of her energetic authority. Authority, in Jungian terms, is not dominance. It's integration. You no longer leak energy through over-explaining, over-promising, or over-apologizing. You stop giving away your center just to avoid tension. Real authority doesn't demand, it embodies. It's the kind of presence that makes people pause before crossing your line, even if you never mention it. To cultivate this authority, you must first befriend your guilt. Guilt is the echo of old conditioning, the voice that says, "You're selfish for choosing yourself." But that voice belongs to your past, not your truth. Guilt only means you're breaking an outdated contract with your own self-abandonment. And every time you hold a boundary through guilt, the guilt loses its grip. Here's a truth rarely said out loud. Boundaries without embodiment are just words. You can say no and still leak "please like me" energy. You can stay silent and still project resentment. Energetic authority is when the inner and outer align. Your energy, tone, and body language say the same thing. "I respect you," and I respect myself. Try this practice. Before you respond to a request, pause. Place a hand on your heart and ask, does saying yes honor me or drain me? If the body tightens, that's your unconscious saying no. Trust it. Your intuition speaks through contraction and expansion. Honoring that signal is the deepest boundary of all, the boundary between your truth and your conditioning. In relationships, this alignment changes everything. People begin to mirror your steadiness. Conflicts lose their chaos. Even those who once tested your limits start meeting you with more care. Not because they've changed, but because you have. Energy teaches louder than explanation ever could. Jung said that what we fail to bring to consciousness will appear in our lives as fate. When you refuse to claim your boundaries, life will keep sending you people to cross them until you learn to stand still in your authority. That is not punishment, it's precision. The universe doesn't misunderstand you, it trains you. And here lies the paradox. The softer you become inside your own strength, the stronger your field becomes outside. Because true power doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't argue, it emanates. It doesn't force silence. It is silence, dignified, calm, unshakable. So the next time guilt whispers, they'll think you're cold. Breathe and remind yourself, warmth doesn't mean access. You can love deeply and still say no. You can be kind and still be firm. You can be gentle and still be unshakable. That balance, softness in truth, firmness in love, is what Jung called the union of opposites, the essence of wholeness. Boundaries are not about distance. They're about definition. They define where you end and where your peace begins. And the moment you honor that, the world begins to treat you accordingly. Not because you demanded respect, but because you finally embodied it. 7. Energetic silence and magnetic presence. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Carl Jung, there is a silence that isn't empty. It's full of power. It's not the silence of suppression, but of sovereignty. It's the moment when you no longer rush to correct, to convince, to repair. You simply hold your presence, and something unseen in the room begins to recalibrate. When you stop explaining, the energy shifts. You move from the vibration of seeking validation to the vibration of embodied truth. And truth, once embodied, speaks louder than any sentence ever could. People feel it before they understand it. They lower their voice. They slow their tone. They listen, not because you demanded their attention, but because your stillness commands it. This is energetic silence, the language of the self that has nothing left to prove. It's what Jung called individuation in motion. The moment the inner and outer world align, you no longer live to be understood. You live to be congruent. Every breath, every gesture, every pause becomes a statement of integrity. In this field, respect ceases to be a negotiation. It becomes resonance. People treat you with care because your energy no longer tolerates chaos. It's not arrogance, it's coherence. When you vibrate in self-trust, you emit a frequency that tells the world, you can meet me in clarity or you can step away, but I will not lower my vibration to be heard. Imagine walking into a conversation where someone raises their voice, trying to provoke you. Old you would have matched the tone, defended, explained, proved. Now, you pause. You listen, you breathe, you stay still. The silence between their sentences stretches, not tense, but clear. Your calm becomes a mirror they can't avoid. And slowly, their energy drops to meet yours. That is magnetic presence, the ability to transform a room without uttering a word. Silence, when conscious, is not avoidance. It's the most advanced form of communication. It says, I see you, I just don't need to participate in the noise. It communicates value by scarcity. When you no longer fill every gap with words, people begin to value your attention, your time, your emotional availability. Because what is rare becomes revered. Mira learned this. There was a time when every pause in a conversation felt like danger, as if silence meant rejection. She would rush to fill it with words, with explanations, with nervous laughter. But now, she allows pauses to exist. She breathes through the discomfort and watches others adjust to her stillness. And slowly, people begin speaking to her differently, softer, slower, with more awareness. She hasn't become intimidating. She's become present. That is the quiet magnetism of a person who no longer leaks energy. This doesn't mean silence is always the answer. It means silence has become a choice, not a collapse. There's a difference between withholding truth and embodying it. The first hides, the second radiates. When your silence carries love, it heals. When it carries resentment, it burns. So the work is not to be silent in fear, but silent in faith. Carl Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Becoming yourself means no longer outsourcing your frequency to the approval of others. You learn that being is enough. And when you rest in that awareness, the field around you stabilizes. You become a quiet gravity. People feel safer near you, not because you save them, but because your steadiness reminds them of their own. This is the paradox of magnetic presence. The less you chase connection, the more connection finds you. The less you explain, the more you are understood. The less you try to be seen, the brighter your energy glows. That's not mysticism. That's physics of consciousness. Attention follows coherence, and coherence comes from truth. Try this. The next time you enter a room, don't rush to speak. Simply notice your breath, your posture, your vibration. Feel your energy field expand around you like calm light. When you finally do speak, let each word rise from that stillness. You'll notice something extraordinary. People listen differently, even if you say less. That's not luck. That's the silent authority of presence. So when you are tempted to explain, pause. Let your silence do the talking. Because silence doesn't mean nothing is being said. It means everything important is already understood. And that's the ultimate lesson of Jungian awareness. When you are aligned with your truth, you don't need to be louder. You just need to be. And the universe adjusts its volume to match yours. The peace of being understood without words. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be aligned. This journey has not been about silence for its own sake. It has been about remembering who you are when the noise stops. The you that doesn't need to perform, persuade, or prove. When you stop explaining, you stop abandoning yourself. You return to the quiet knowing that your truth doesn't require validation to exist. Carl Jung once said, "The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind." And now perhaps you understand what he meant. The silence you feared isn't emptiness. It's space. Space for your soul to breathe, for your energy to speak, for your life to reorganize around your steadiness. Respect is not something you demand. It's something you radiate when your energy becomes congruent with your truth. It begins where explanation ends. So tonight, as you close your eyes, breathe deeply and whisper to yourself, "I am safe in my silence. I am whole in my presence." Let that be your quiet declaration to the universe. If this message resonated with you, write one word in the comments: steady. Because every time you choose presence over proof, silence over struggle, you tell the universe, I have returned to myself, and I am no longer explaining who I am. Thank you for staying until the end of this journey. If these words found you, it means your soul is ready to stop explaining and start embodying. Take this message beyond the screen, into the quiet moments of your day. When you feel the pull to justify yourself, pause, breathe. Let silence carry your truth. For the next 24 hours, practice saying less and feeling more. Listen to your energy before your words. Write one line in your journal tonight: I am safe even when I am silent. If this video touched something inside you, share it with someone who also needs to remember their calm. And if you're walking this path of self-respect and awareness, you are not alone. We are many souls returning to our center, one silent breath at a time.